episode of the F1 Chat. We have the Brazilian F1, Brazilian Sprint, Gabriel Bortoletto, Max Verstappen, the trials and tribulations of Lance Stroll, and much more. All that on the F1 Chat.
When you try your best but you don't succeed.
Hello there in Internet Land. This is episode 22 of the F1 Chat. I'm your host, Phil Lamington. Sitting to my left is... Hey, you're not JB.
No, I'm not.
No, it's Longhorn. He's reclaimed JB's seat and microphone and headphones.
And my voice. Oh, fuck yeah.
Right, that just got us demonetized. Right there. Right, so how you going, Longhorn?
I'm well. I'm doing really, really well. Spent today watching the race from start to finish and thoroughly enjoyed myself.
Yeah, it was a good race. Did go for nearly 3 hours.
Yeah, but I actually sat there and watched through the whole thing, even through like the red flag moments. It was that enjoyable for me that I literally watched every single bit. Didn't skip through, red flags or anything like that, because there was just always something to talk about.
Even the formation lap.
Yeah, that's right. Before the race even got underway, we had stuff to talk about.
It was something, that's for sure. Now, there's no JB this week. He is unfortunately at work.
Unfortunately, yes.
But he
Probably
nice
night
enough...
shift, poor lad.
Yeah, poor lad.
Thinking
yeah.
of you.
Yeah. But he was nice enough to send through his notes for me to read. And he's written them in the biggest font possible. 10 pages of notes here, so... Thank you, JB, for your contribution to making sure that my eyesight cannot screw this up. So there was an F1 sprint race. Better put the picture up. That's also my audible cue when I actually edit these things to go, oh, I've got to put the picture here. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. Right, so we have the F1 sprint race for the Brazil F1 Grand Prix. All right, so the sprint race. Lap 1, Oscar Piastri starts on pole position alongside McLaren teammate Lando Norris. Oscar holds off Lando. Max Verstappen locks up as he tries to pass Charles Leclerc. Lap 9, Sergio Perez dive bombs Nico Hülkenberg for 9th. That'd be the most action that Sergio Perez has done for a long time. Lap 18, Max Verstappen passes Charles Leclerc around the outside of turn 1 for 3rd. Lap 20, Sergio Perez passes Liam Lawson for 8th. Lap 21, Nico Hülkenberg pulls off the track with smoke coming out of the back of his Haas. Glad I said Haas. Could have sounded like something else. Lap 22, Lando Norris passes Oscar Piastri under team orders to lead the sprint. Lap 23, virtual safety car is deployed for Hülkenberg's stricken Haas. Lap 24, Lando Norris wins the sprint race ahead of Oscar Piastri and initially Max Verstappen, but Max Verstappen gets a 5-second time penalty for being too close to Oscar Piastri at the end of the VSC period and loses his 3rd place to Charles Leclerc. So Max Verstappen gets dropped down to 4th place. In 5th place is Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. 6th place is George Russell in Mercedes. 7th place is Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. And 8th place is Sergio Perez for Red Bull, finally getting some points.
Oh, good on him, getting 8th. Eh?
Good job,
Well
Sergio.
done, Sergio.
Well done. You've earned yourself a contract at Red... Possibly. Look, the sprint race was... It was all right.
Yeah.
It's a track that does work with the sprint race format.
It does.
But we all know we watch Brazil and the Brazilian F1 for the weather.
Oh, yeah. And it never disappoints.
Boy, oh boy, did the weather bring it. Whether you like it or not. Wow, that joke just sailed past the keeper. That was 4 buys, bashes into the fence.
Marvellous.
It was simply 2 for 22 at the end of the 22nd over. Oh, that's got him. Oh, piss off, you're out.
Piss off, you're out.
Because the pitch is hard and fast. Yeah, wrong sport. And it's go.
Now we're back.
There we go. Yes. Right. So we get to the Grand Prix, the proper Grand Prix, after a chaotic qualifying.
Yeah, wow.
Where Alex Albon's car was so wrecked that he couldn't participate in the race.
Man, disappointing.
Fernando Alonso wrecked his car. Lance Stroll wrecked his car. Franco Colapinto wrecked his car, I think.
Was that quali or the race? I think he was fine.
It was in the race. In the race, he wrecked his car.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a few.
Did Behrman?
Uh,
Did Behrman have... I know he went off track a lot, but that was in the race.
In quali, he was all right.
No, he's
And
great.
Oliver Behrman was filling in for Kevin Magnussen,
Yeah.
too, because he was a bit unwell.
Mm.
So another shot for Behrman. But then we get to the Grand Prix. Ooh, doggy. So,
We're going to eat this one up.
the formation lap. Your boy, Lance Stroll, decides to spin it on the formation lap and then beaches it in the sand trying to find his way back to the track. Clearly his car does not have GPS or a competent team
Nor a brain in the cockpit.
or a pair of working eyes. Oh, God. But Lando Norris started the race on pole position alongside George Russell. And in typical Lando Norris fashion, Lando Norris lost the lead on the first lap going into George Russell, and Charles Leclerc swept under Liam Lawson. Max Verstappen fires up 5 places on the opening lap alone as his teammate Sergio Perez spins off, somehow not getting buried in the mud. Lap 2, Max Verstappen passes Lewis Hamilton for 10th. Lap 5, Max Verstappen passes Pierre Gasly for 9th. Lap 9, Oliver Behrman is handed a 10-second time penalty for causing a collision with Franco Colapinto. I didn't agree with that. I don't think he deserved it. I think it was just a racing incident. Colapinto was cautious on the brakes and just a love tap. And Oliver Behrman protested that over the radio, but that was all for naught. Lap 10, Max Verstappen dive bombs Oscar Piastri for 7th, bringing back memories of his previous wet drives at Interlagos. Lap 11, Max Verstappen slips past Liam Lawson for 6th. Lap 12, Lewis Hamilton slides off the track, losing 12th to Franco Colapinto.
It was a great move by Colapinto, that one too.
That was, and Lewis Hamilton was just having a shocker. Lap 25, Ferrari making the first move. Charles Leclerc pitting for his second set of intermediate tyres. Lap 27, Nico Hülkenberg spins off the track and gets his Haas stuck. A VSC is deployed. Lap 28, Oscar Piastri pits under the VSC. Sergio Perez pits for full wets. Lap 29, George Russell and Lando Norris pit for intermediate tyres just as the VSC ends. Esteban Ocon leading the Grand Prix ahead of Max Verstappen as the rain starts to pour down. Oscar Piastri is handed a 10-second time penalty for hitting Liam Lawson on the track. Make that clear. Lap 30, Lando Norris passes George Russell for 4th just as the safety car is deployed. Lap 32, Franco Colapinto smashes his Williams into the barriers at the final corner. Red flag is thrown, giving everyone ahead of Lando a free tyre change, which I still disagree with. Lap 33, Esteban Ocon leads the pack away off the rolling restart. Zhou and Behrman slide off the track behind them. Lando Norris slides off the track and falls to 5th behind George Russell in a championship-changing moment. Lap 35, Lewis Hamilton passes Fernando Alonso for 9th. Lap 36, Oliver Behrman spins off the track trying to chase down Carlos Sainz. Lap 40, Carlos Sainz spins off the track, damaging the rear of his Ferrari and retiring from the race. Lap 43, Max Verstappen dive bombs Esteban Ocon for the lead of the Grand Prix off the restart, as Lando Norris slides off the track again, falling to 7th. Lap 46, Lando passes Oscar under team orders. Lap 52, Piastri runs wide and nearly loses 7th to Yuki Tsunoda. Lap 55, Sergio Perez runs wide trying to pass Liam Lawson, losing a spot to Lewis Hamilton and falling to 11th. Lap 69, Max Verstappen wins the Brazilian Grand Prix from the Alpine pairing of Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. Max Verstappen also gets fastest lap and driver of the day on the day he eclipses the GOAT, Michael Schumacher's record for most consecutive days leading a Formula One championship, blank page. In 4th place was George Russell for the Mercedes. 5th place was Charles Leclerc for Ferrari. 6th place was Lando Norris for McLaren. 7th place is Yuki Tsunoda in the RB. 8th place was Oscar Piastri in the McLaren. 9th place was Liam Lawson in the other RB. And in 10th place was Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes.
Right, where do we start? All the way back at the start?
Well, I'd like
formation
to.
lap?
We'll talk about Max Verstappen first,
Yeah, okay.
because that's the gift that keeps on giving. That's the motoring equivalent of chlamydia. What happened at the start? But Max Verstappen put on a masterclass.
He was just like another world compared to these drivers. Hey, just it goes to show you if you ever looked into Max Verstappen's upbringing on how he become the Max Verstappen he is, and you see footage of him out there in his go-kart riding around doing laps in the freezing rain where no one else is, and Josh is just pushing him to just do that bit more than everyone else. You see it in this drive. These are the 20 best drivers in the world, and he looked like a class above them all.
Yeah, he made most of them look like F2 drivers.
Yeah, he really did. It was. Do you reckon it's his best drive?
I'd say it is.
It'd have to be.
It's up there.
Yeah, it was immense. Honestly, just 17th to 1st, and just dominated. And even once he got past Esteban Ocon, I think he put 19 seconds was it in the end?
Yeah.
On him, he was almost lapping cars by the end of it. It's just unreal.
And it's only the 5th time in 1,121 races that someone from 17th or lower has won a race.
Yeah.
5th in 1,121 races. Holy Jesus. But he put on a masterclass. He absolutely drove the rings around that car, because on any other track, that car would not be any other state. The weather was atrocious, so a lot of the drivers spinning off or whatever, you can't blame them.
Oh, definitely not. But what it did was it brought it down to the drivers. It almost nullified a lot of the differences in the cars, and it came down to drivers' skill this race. And God, was it put on show by Verstappen. As we've said, he just looked like a man amongst boys, and it's not even surprising hearing him coming from 17th to 1st. And we've seen him do it before, closely, not quite the same. I think his best ever was 16th to 2nd in Sochi, the year Lando Norris threw it away, I believe, in the wet again, another race in the wet. So we've seen him do this similarly, but the dominating fashion he did this one, that race, as great as he drove, there's a bit of luck, and you could argue he had a tiny little bit of luck, but he was winning this race no matter what luck was thrown his way. The way he drove today, it was just amazing to watch.
For me, though, one thing that sort of got highlighted for me was I don't think the Pirelli Inters and wet tyres are very good.
No, they don't seem very good whatsoever.
And it seems to be two extremes. It's either there's a little bit of water and the intermediates work, but anything other than that, if you go the full wets, you're just going overkill. And it seems like whenever they have to use the full wets, they just red flag the race and say, "Oh, it's too wet to race."
Exactly right. I'll say one thing. I'm glad they let this race play out as much as it did, and they didn't just call it red flag for too wet. They waited till there was an incident to call it. But you're exactly right. It was like at one point when they got that extra heavy showers and everyone was sort of pitting, they all come back out on inters and then they couldn't stay on track. And the actual drivers who did pick the wets, were only a couple, were seconds faster and clearly had the right choice for how wet it was. But because every other driver's just thrown on these inters and then having incidents, we're just red flagging. So we're never actually getting to really see this, wet weather driving completely, because it's like the teams are hesitant to throw those wets on because there must be such a difference between the inter and wet that if they do get it wrong, it costs them too much. I don't know. I feel like they almost need to do something where they, like you said, they've either got to fix the compounds themselves and get some better tyres for this weather, or make a rule that they have to pit for wets in these kind of conditions when the whole track's considered wet and the rain is intensifying. The only tyre that should be available should be wet during that, so that we don't sort of get this guys throwing it out on the inters because they're too scared for the wets and we just get a car go off because it's clearly too wet.
Well, I just think Pirelli needs to look at something in between the intermediate and the full wet, because for me the full wet seems like an extreme wet. They need something in between that is it's a little bit more than just a puddle on the track.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, I mean, this new generation of cars seemingly does not like wet weather either.
No.
But we like it.
Oh, love it.
We like it as a fan. We get to watch this stuff until they start red flagging the goddamn race. But Max Verstappen, masterclass of a drive.
Yeah,
And
one of the best I've ever seen. Probably go down as one of the best of his career. Who knows? He's still got plenty of time left. Who knows what other races we'll see him pull out? But it was an unreal drive from Max, and worthy of him retaining the World Championship and winning his fourth.
Well, he hasn't won it yet. It's not over yet. But we'll go through the key drivers. So my first key driver is Esteban Ocon, because he got second
P2
in the race, P2.
No mistakes the whole race. He was where he had to be.
And that Alpine seemed to come alive. It was almost like back in the old days of MotoGP when Suzuki was in it. Suzuki would always get a win when it was wet and just unfavourable conditions, and the Honda and the Yamaha and the whoever else was in it, because at that time I don't think Ducati was in it. But when those teams would fail, Suzuki would be like, "See you at Suzuki, boys." They just skate on in, and that's what the Alpine seemed to do on this weekend. It came alive.
Yeah, and what a weekend for them. I mean, I think this P2 and P3, with Gasly getting P3, has brought Alpine from 9th to 6th, I believe, which I think is like a $50 million difference. So, I mean, what a weekend to have, and it was funny, right? I was kind of like annoyed that it happened, because I wanted it to happen to another constructor, another team, because in my head I'm like, Alpine don't deserve this kind of result. Alpine, the people in charge of Alpine. But I was really happy to see all the mechanics excited, all the people that work for Alpine, because it's not their fault, the decisions that get made. But to see them have a bit of, a smile on their face and happiness, considering how bad Alpine's been run for the last year, was good to see. So I was kind of glad in one regard, and even seeing Ocon and Gasly like for once look like
friends,
like they were both happy. It was what a weekend for them, and what a drive for Ocon. He no mistakes whatsoever. He looked like he had pace in that Alpine, and well deserved P2. They both got the strategy right as well, which was strange because, to be honest, it was probably the clear one to go with, but they were the ones who did it, and got the chocolates in the end.
Well, I mean, Pierre Gasly was my number 3, my next key driver.
Yeah.
I mean, drove a pretty damn good race, kept it between the white lines, kept it on the track, got some biscuits, got on the podium.
Yeah.
Can't fault that.
Another amazing drive for him too, yeah.
George Russell, great drive from him.
100%.
He was unlucky because of the VSC. Him and Lando Norris both had VSC.
Yeah, well, it was interesting, right? Because at that point in the race, right, it had been said for a long time that the rain was going to increase for a few laps during that time in the race. It was coming to that point. So that VSC come out, and I completely understood the drivers that were able to get in as they were coming around when that VSC started. But unfortunately, at that point, Norris and George, who were leading the race, George first, Lando P2, had gone past the pit lane. So they weren't able to get in until they'd done a full lap. And by that point, the VSC had actually been sort of cleared up. Well, I think they'd already made their mind up that they were going to get in under it.
Well, they had a lap before where Lando was on the blower saying, we should box now. And the team like, no, stay out. And I bet you any money he's sitting there going, that was a bad call. You should have listened to me. And that's one of the few times where they should listen to the drivers. The drivers are the ones in the trenches. They're the ones on the track. They got the feel of what's going on with the car. If the car is sloppy because the tyres are starting to fail on them, they need to listen to them. Yeah.
I do agree that they definitely do need to go with the drivers in these conditions. I'm not sure, though, if that was the right call by Lando Norris, because he was saying at that point, are we going to consider boxing to overtake? And to me, that just felt like he wasn't going to catch George, didn't have the pace, didn't have whatever required to get him, and was looking for an easy out, in my opinion, was just looking for the undercut, which we know is powerful, but that's what he was looking for. And in my opinion, as I was saying earlier, we knew that rain was getting heavier. We knew cars were going off left, right, and centre. You could just sense that we were going to have another incident that was going to cause a flag. So in my opinion, it was worth staying out and not bothering whatsoever unless we did get the safety car or the VSC. So I'm not sure it was the right call by Lando Norris. So I actually looked at that and thought, well, that to me shows me a driver that isn't ready for the World Championship, in my opinion, because you have that looking for an easy out, not really thinking the full strategy ahead. Not thinking, oh, hang on, whereas you get drivers like Max Verstappen who just on it everything. They got the right answer. I mean, when that formation lap got abandoned because of maximum window licking achieved Lance Stroll in the formation lap, which we'll get into, I'm sure. But when that happened, Lando Norris drove off. Yeah. Max Verstappen knew the rule. Max Verstappen didn't move anywhere, and that's the difference to me between a world champion and a driver who's extremely talented, but probably just doesn't have it between the ears at the moment. Because every advantage he's getting, he is stuffing up himself.
He's an unpolished diamond.
Yep.
He's got the talent. He's got the car underneath him. I think the other thing was, without DRS, he struggled, and that's why he couldn't overtake George Russell. Without that DRS, he just couldn't do it. Whereas Max Verstappen was just passing everyone without DRS.
Yeah.
But, George Russell drove a sensible race.
He was fantastic. He didn't make any mistakes. And again, he was also unlucky. You heard him. So this is also around that same time we're talking about where we did have the VSC. And they both got unlucky because obviously the team must have got them to box as the VSC essentially was called off. But apparently they had time to sort of cancel it if they wanted. But anyway, they come in. And then shortly after we got the red flag, which dropped them down in position on the circuit. And obviously everyone gets to change tyres. And you could hear George say, I knew we should have stayed out. George said, I knew we should have stayed out instead of boxing. So, again, but it's one of those things where should these drivers essentially maybe, because I think you're right, in the drivers should get the decision, but should they just go against the team in those, should they just back themselves and say no? Or, I don't know. What's the, what do you think about that?
I think the thing is, To steal a line from a Megadeth song, hindsight is always 20/20. It's easy for George Russell to say, oh, we should have stayed out. But what happened if you'd stayed out and the red flag didn't happen? You never know.
Yeah, here's the thing, right? And this is why strategy comes into it, because sometimes you've got to anticipate things that you can't foresee. You've got to foresee something and feel it happening. Sitting there watching it, I'm not at the track, but me watching it and seeing what had been happening, drivers going off left, right, and centre, with the rain increase, in my opinion, it was only a matter of time before maybe not a red flag, but there was going to be a safety car incident. There was going to be someone either getting beached, someone, tapping the wall and being stopped. Like, I could sense it happening. You could see it coming, in my opinion. So for me, I personally would have stayed out if I was making the strategy call. You're completely right. Like, hindsight is a beautiful thing. But I do feel like this was a situation where you could have foreseen that. This wasn't like a complete unlucky red flag. It was, perfect normal conditions, and they've, in that case, I completely get you trying to take the VSC because you're not expecting a red flag. But I don't know. I thought in these conditions and the way everything was going, I thought it was pretty foreseeable that we were going to get something, and I personally would have stayed out. But I can see what they were trying to achieve, but, that they didn't get it right in the end of the day.
I think the one thing is, if it's Brazil and it's going to be wet weather, your pit crew and your strategy people need to be on edge. They need to be just as punchy as the drivers in the cockpit.
100%. And for me as well, with the strategy they were going with, we actually got to foresee what they were going to try and achieve with Charles Leclerc a few laps earlier. Because Ferrari actually pitted Charles 3 or 4 laps before that point we got to where the VSC come and they were thinking of, pinning. And Charles wasn't increasing whatsoever on the track with the tyre change. It wasn't giving him an advantage one bit. So McLaren and Mercedes could have sat there and realised, like, hey, even if we do go for what we're going for, we're not actually even going to get a boost anyway. So we might as well stay out as long as we can and see if we can pop a red flag. Because if Charles had gone out and he was, all of a sudden getting a second a lap, or, something was actually changing in that car from him making that move, I completely get where they're going. But at that point, it was clear that he wasn't getting the advantage. And they said that, like, if I can sit on the couch and get told that by the commentary and watch what's going on and see that happening in real time, these engineers and engineers and all this sitting there should be able to see it too. And I don't know if it's maybe just a pressure thing, me sitting on the couch under absolutely no pressure whatsoever, not having to make a decision, blah, blah, blah. It might be easy for me to just go, I'd just stay out. When they're looking at every little bit of data that, I'm not seeing either. So maybe they're looking at other things I'm not that's making them go with these decisions, probably. But for me, being dumb on the couch, it did feel like, hang out for the red flag. But, I mean, I could see where they were going, but it didn't quite work out for them, unfortunately.
Also, it does feel like McLaren seems to have inherited Ferrari's strategy department.
But that's what I mean. Like, Ferrari made that call early. Again, they went off with their own, we're going to do it earlier before anyone else and see if we get ahead. And they didn't do it with Sainz, who was not running in the points. That was the bit that surprised me. I think even the commentary team said, I would throw Sainz to see, that's what you should be doing. If you've got a driver nowhere near it, test them out to see your driver in the running, what they can get. But no, they did it with Charles Leclerc. And to Charles' credit, he still managed to, finish the race and not make any mistakes and get a good bunch of points for himself. But yeah, the strategy call was a strange one, and it definitely didn't, in my opinion, help Charles whatsoever. And it was probably evident that wasn't the right way to go about that without, what they're looking at. So, but hey, that's the Ferrari strategy team, I guess.
Well, Charles Leclerc was my next driver as well. I mean, he kept it between the lines, kept it on the track.
Yeah.
Got fifth, I think it was fifth place. Yeah.
Fifth place.
So he still got valuable points. And, he made it work.
Yeah. Did everything he could do.
My next driver is Sushi Tsunoda.
Yeah, he was fantastic for me.
Yeah, like he started third, didn't he?
P3, yeah, P3 in quali. And he was not very far off of P2, I don't think. Like, he was very, very close. But, yes, a great... And honestly, I reckon he would have been in a podium place. He raced that well if they didn't follow the same strategy as the Mercedes and the McLaren, which was the pit. If he had hung out there with the Alpines, I think he had got overtaken by Ocon at that point. But I don't know if Gasly would have got him because, I mean, Tsunoda held off Ocon for a long time in that race. And he held his own wherever he was. I mean, even when he fell back to P7 or whatever, he held off the charge of whoever was behind him. No one was catching him. So, yeah, pretty good race for me, in my opinion. For someone who we've watched over the years who's been too emotional and would be prone to have an incident in a race like this, he kept it on track, didn't make any mistakes. He was quick. Yeah, in my opinion, it was probably one of his best races I've seen him have.
And the last one is Liam Lawson. He just shows that he is worthy of an F1 seat every weekend.
Yep.
And he's not afraid to flip the bird at Sergio Perez or Fernando Alonso or whoever.
I reckon he lives rent-free in Sergio's head. You see so many times, they seem to be, you watch the last few races, they seem to be in the same area. And it's always Sergio having to, funny enough, Sergio having to try and make a move on Liam Lawson most of the time. Because Sergio's just not getting it done whatsoever. And he's not getting it done on track with Liam. Liam's owning him on the track.
Sergio shouldn't be anywhere near Liam Lawson. He should be further up the road.
Exactly. At this point, he's being dominated by Yuki and Liam Lawson.
Yeah.
Dominated.
Particularly Liam Lawson.
Yeah.
Liam Lawson is just making him his bitch.
100% he is.
He really is.
He really is. And I almost, watching this race, I watched the move he tried to pull on Liam, and it was from nowhere. It was never going to happen. And I was like, I just think he's washed up, Sergio. I really think he's washed. And I also think he's got this entitlement factor to his head that he's the experienced head. He should be in the... I really do think he feels like his seat's not under pressure to these two guys, Liam and Yuki, because, he's done his time in Formula 1 and he's had good races and he's shown he's a good driver, which all of that is true. But this year, he looks washed, and he doesn't look like... you got these two guys, Liam and Yuki, who are far driving superior than Sergio this whole year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like that's lit in anything under Sergio. He's just, I don't know, he just feels washed and done. I don't think he's got it anymore to be in that seat. And if I was Red Bull, I would be making the change sooner rather than later. It needs to be one of these two drivers you got in your B team. That's the whole bloody point. So, you got to pick one of them, in my opinion, and get rid of Sergio, because he hasn't got it this year. I don't think he's got it anymore.
No, he's past his prime.
Yep.
Put a fork in him, he's done.
Yeah. Yep.
Which then leaves us to the helmet drivers. There's the PK kick.
Good old PK kick.
I've only got one driver. Do I really need to spell this out?
I think we're going to have to rename this award in his honour when he retires.
Oh, God.
What was he thinking, Phil?
It's for all those keeping score at home, it's Lance Stroll. I mean, Alex Albon crashed during qualifying and made an absolute mess of the car and couldn't do the race. Carlos Sainz, he crashed out. Oliver Behrman had a spin. All these experienced drivers or newcomers, how do you beach it on the formation lap?
On purpose.
Like, he lost it under braking, ended up in the... He wasn't even in the kitty litter. He's still on bitumen.
Yeah.
It was bitumen runoff. And then he takes off and drives it straight into the gravel trap. Like, into the gravel trap.
Yeah, perfectly worded there. The gravel trap. Why are you driving?
And what's worse is they've got a runoff road that goes all the way around the gravel trap. But instead, the window-licking spastic, the inbred, drives it into the gravel trap.
It just blows your mind how you're a professional driver and you think to do that. It's not even like he was trying to get back out to save time. They're on the formation lap, so he wasn't losing anything. He was going to the, it baffles my mind what makes you think I'm going to drive through the gravel trap when there's a clear runoff and you're on the runoff. You're lucky not to be in the gravel trap. You don't have to go anywhere near it. And you think, I'm going to drive through here.
Did he forget to put his prescription visor on his helmet? Did
his eyebrows fall in front of his eyes and he just couldn't see?
Did he think that magic pixies will get him out of the gravel trap? And he just casually drove onto the gravel trap. It's like he almost beached it on purpose because it was a bit too cold and wet, and he missed his warm comfort blankie, and he wanted to go back to his motorhome and have his comfort blankie and his fucking chicky nuggies and his chocolate milk. Like, what is this guy doing on the grid? What is he 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 doing on the grid? I don't know.
It's so frustrating.
He is the motoring equivalent of a concussion. is the equivalent of moving to Antarctica because you think you can grow potatoes. Like, what is he doing on the grid?
It's just...
What is he doing on the goddamn grid? I could drive better than this blithering idiot. That's what he is. He is a blithering idiot.
Oh, he's just the amount of moments we've got over Lance Stroll's career to prove this, and then you see this, and you're just like, out of all the moments he's had, the one where they ask him if the conditions are right to stay out on track, and he says yes, and immediately bins it into the wall after saying that. Those things you can go, he wasn't expecting to go into the wall. But this one here was like, he made the conscious decision to drive into the gravel trap instead of going around the runoff like you're meant to, so you don't get stuck. That's what it's there for, so that you can go around without driving into it.
But, I mean, all year, like, he drove into the back of Danny Rick at China. And he's like, he braked early, or he brake checked me. No, you pillock. He braked for the goddamn corner because your teammate backed everyone up in a concertina. Not Constantina, concertina, like Rocket Power Mohawk pointed out. Rocket Power Mohawk's video is just so on point. I wish he would go back and edit it and put this bit into it. What is he doing on the grid? Just, I can't. I honestly, bin him and bring back Logan Sargent. At least King Latifi, Pastor Maldonado, any of them. Not this rich boy douchebag.
Who's just got absolutely no... I mean, he crashed in quality as well.
He reminds me of my sales reps at work. He can't take any accountability for his own goddamn mess.
No, he can't.
And
I tell you what, it's got to be a hard job being a mechanic in Aston Martin, and you fix his car to get in the race, and then he has his moment on the formation, and you think, okay, at least it didn't, it couldn't got worse. We might be able to get him back out into the race, and then he turns around and drives into the gravel trap purposely and just beaches the car. What are you thinking when you're a mechanic? Like, what is your morale like?
There was this old show back in the 90s. It was an Australian comedy show called Full Frontal, right? And around that time on Channel 7, they had a show called Gladiators. Remember Gladiators?
I know the one, yes.
And they had Kimberly Joseph as one of the hosts, and she was notoriously a bit vacant. And so the piss take version, so they've got someone dressed up as Kimberly Joseph. And they've been eliminated from the game, and she's like, You've just had your head kicked in. Was that your plan? Lance Stroll, you just beached your car on the formation lap because you couldn't drive around a gravel trap. Was that your plan?
Like, how do you explain in the meeting after what was your reasoning for driving through that? Like, they'd be sitting there being like, gravel trap, designed to stop car.
Trap.
Beach car so it does not crash further.
What does that word trap mean?
Runoff area, asphalt, bitumen designed for car.
Gravel trap.
Gravel trap.
But the roads are made with gravel. So maybe I could still drive on it.
Did he think because he had the inters on, it was like a four-wheel drive tyre?
Does he think he's the motory equivalent of Jesus, where he can drive on water?
Well, he certainly can't figure that out.
Oh, you can't drive on a fucking road either. Jesus Christ. Like, God. And you know what? Someone should take a photo of that and show it to Adrian Newey and go, you're going to be making cars for this guy. This guy right here. This is the fate of your genius cars. Right here. This window-licking spastic is going to beat your car more often than David Hasselhoff in Baywatch. Right? You're going to design cars for it. I bet you Adrian Newey's like, I don't give a shit what he does with my car. Like, I'm getting paid a squillion dollars.
It's just going to be Andrew Newey. He's going to be that meme of like wiping his tears away with cash notes.
Yeah, $100, £100 bills.
He's just going to be wiping it away.
Yeah.
Like, but it's all right.
I'm going to have to smoke a joint. Rolls up a joint in £100 note. Smokes it through a pound. Oh, fuck me.
Good on him.
Oh, God. Lance Stroll.
Locked it up.
Oh, damn. What can you say?
As much as we've said, you can keep going for the end of time with how.
Exhibit Ello Mello P. Ello Mello P. Oh, Christ. Please do not let this man have children. Do not let him replicate or breed in any form. If he has a girlfriend, please check that she is a chick, not a guy in drag.
Well, apparently he doesn't anymore. Apparently this weekend he broke up with his girlfriend or something.
Oh, that's probably why he beached the car then.
He was just so upset. Yeah,
he was
just
so
didn't wanna
upset.
race. Like,
Yeah, you ever seen the movie Highlander?
no, I have not.
So he kills a guy in a sword fight in the Madison Square Garden car park, right? Lops off his head. Then a quickening happens, and he tries to escape, and he gets arrested by the cops. And the cops are interrogating him over it. And they found the other guy's sword. It's this super rare sword. And the head cop's... Because there's the head cop, the main character, the cop who arrested him, and another bald-headed cop. And the main cop's like, oh, you want to hear a theory? And the main guy's, yeah, right, yeah, shoot away. He says, you went down there to see this guy about buying the sword. You argued over the price and you cut off his head. And the main character goes, would you like to hear another theory? Because they were at Madison Square Garden watching the wrestling. And he says, you want to hear another theory? He goes, this guy was so upset over the lousy wrestling tonight, he went down to the garage and in a fit of depression cut off his own head, which causes the bald-headed cop to go... And then the cop that arrested him, who's a bit of an idiot, he says, you went down there for a BJ and just didn't want to pay for it. He's like, you're sick. And then the cop just throws a punch at him for no reason other than he said to him, you're a sick guy. But the whole... He was so upset over the lousy wrestling that he went down to the garage and cut off his own head in a fit of depression. It's Lance Stroll beached his car during an F1 race because he was upset over his girlfriend leaving him. Smartest decision she's ever made.
Checks out.
She's probably going to leave him to date Max Verstappen like Daniel Kvyat's girlfriend did. She got pregnant to him, and then while she was pregnant, no, I'm going with Max Verstappen. See ya. That's actually why...
She knew a world champion when she could see one, eh?
That's why Heinz Harald Frentzen hated Michael Schumacher, because his girlfriend was Heinz Harald Frentzen's girlfriend, ditched him to be with Michael Schumacher, ended up marrying Michael Schumacher and is his wife now. But Heinz Harald Frentzen took it personally. He was just like, "Mate, you stole my missus, mate."
There you go. There's hyperbole, isn't it? Even in Formula One, eh?
Yeah, and that was while he was...
see the world champion, off they go.
That's while he was driving with he was driving at Williams with Williams driver number 1. You're probably going, what the hell does that mean? In the old 90s F1 games, Jacques Villeneuve would not lend out his likeness for the video games. So instead of having Jacques Villeneuve, they just had Williams driver 1.
Oh, it's like the old days.
If only Lance Stroll would do that in the modern F1 games. Aston Martin Ass Clown 1. Professional Idiot 1. Daddy's Boy 1. Window Licker 1. Right, so I think it's pretty much a unanimous vote that Lance Stroll is the helmet driver of the week.
Of the year, surely.
Fucking of a lifetime.
Yeah, lifetime award.
Century. You just, there's the award. Just take it. We retire the segment. Yeah. He's just won it by default. Yeah, he took the crown from King Latifi. R.I.P. Latifi.
R.I.P. King.
Right, so we're going to move on to the news. And this was breaking last night. Gabriel Bortoletto has signed with Kick Sauber.
Good get for them.
And he's signed for a couple of years. So he
Brazilian
will...
on the
yeah, and he'll be there when it becomes Audi.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, right? Good get, good driver. He's currently winning the F2 championship. But apparently, up until a few weeks ago, Valtteri Bottas had a deal signed with them. It was just waiting on them to sign the deal. But they've been talking to him at the same time. I sneakily think that Mattia Binotto has taken his Ferrari strategy department calls to Audi.
Added it to his driver calls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by it. I thought you would want to keep one driver in your team for a bit of continuity going forward. And I mean, Valtteri Bottas is a good driver. He's a multiple race winner. He's driven for one of the best constructors of all time through one of the most dominant periods of all time. He's got a lot of experience. He's very likable. You know, ticks every single box you'd think. He's just driving an absolute shit box at the moment and can't really do much about it. So I'm a bit surprised they didn't really go with him. It always felt like they were never wanted to go with him. It was almost like he was the last, choice sort of thing. And this shows you that they still didn't even want to make it. They still went out of their way to not make sure they signed him. And bit surprising. But I mean, Gabriel Bortoletto is very, very talented. He's been very good in the F2. Do you feel like maybe they've made this decision off the back of Colapinto doing so well and Behrman showing he's a decent pair of hands, although he looked like a rookie this week, but can't really blame him for the conditions. But do you think it's they've made this decision on the back of thinking like, you know what, we want ourselves a new, young, exciting driver, tapping into a market, Brazilian, they've got, obviously we just had it, Sao Paulo Grand Prix. I mean, you look at the support Colapinto had this week. You imagine that was a good boost for Williams. Like, when do you ever actually seen people in the crowd wearing Williams gear? You never ever see that.
No, that's right.
And Colapinto was on the driver of the day, despite crashing into, he was not deserving. But he was just there because he was South American and the fans are there. Do you feel like this is a move where they've sort of thought, we want to tap into a bit of a market here and get some fans and some viewership? And a young, exciting driver and see what he's got.
I think so because you get that diamond in the rough. And also I think they want someone they can throw their weight behind as a long-term project. But also, he was McLaren Academy. And there was no way he was going to get into a McLaren for the next couple of years because they've got Piastri and Lando Norris signed up for a long time. So I know that they didn't want a driver on loan. Therefore, Williams would have loaned out Franco Colapinto. But I don't think they wanted to lend out. They didn't want a driver being lent to them from Williams or wherever.
Yeah, they weren't interested in developing someone else's driver. Yeah. And
McLaren basically said, look, he's a talented driver. We do want to see him on the F1 grid. We're going to release him from his McLaren backing. We'll back him for the rest of the year, and then we'll release him from McLaren Academy so he can drive for you guys so he can get a proper earned seat on the F1 grid. And, all props to Zach Brown for making that decision and going, you know what? He deserves to be in F1. He's not going to get it with us. Let's release him and let him get on his F1 career, and it's all up to him if he sinks or swims.
And I love that decision. I honestly believe if you've got a driver in F2 and you can't get him into your team and another F1 team is willing to offer them an F1 seat, I don't believe you should have to buy them out or anything. I believe they should be entitled to be released and signed by that team, because at the end of the day, the whole point of backing these guys is to get them into F1. And if you're going to hold up their career because you've got too many good options, well, then that's a good spot to be in. And it shouldn't be at the detriment of that young driver. I look at a Franco Colapinto. Where's he going to end up going from here? I hope he finds his way into an F1 seat because he's shown he's deserving of that. I don't want to see him get lost in the shuffle because, Williams is backed up with good options, And it's one of these, you got to buy him out if you want him. I can understand the reservation to not let them go, but at the end of the day, it's about getting the best drivers on the grid. And for me, I don't like guys not getting a shot just because of politics, contracts or this. If they're contracted in an F1 team, fair enough, because they've got the seat. Got to buy their contract out. Completely get that. But guys without a seat, I believe this is how it should be done. If an F1 team wants to give them a deal, well, too bad, so sad. They should be allowed to sign with that team, and too bad, so sad, unless you're willing to offer them the F1 seat. So,
well, you mentioned Franco Colapinto, and I'm not going to change the photo or anything. We'll just keep going with this subject. But so apparently Helmut Marko is interested in signing Franco Colapinto.
oh, that's not a good sign.
Like, it seems like Helmut Marko is just, if anyone can turn a steering wheel, we'll sign him to the Red Bull Academy. You know, look what they did to Nick de Vries. Nick de Vries was a talented driver in a shitbox car, and he was made to look like a fucking clown.
Yeah, he really was.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, if he had signed with Williams, Williams wouldn't be in the situation they've been in for the last 2 years.
I definitely think would have got a much whether or not he would have worked out long term, not sure, but he would have been better than we had in Logan Sargent. I think his career would have worked out better. I think he would have got a multiple few years in F1. Who knows if we would have gone beyond that, but I think we definitely would have got the better driver than what we got in the 6 races at AlphaTauri at the time. Cause, and I just don't understand it. Like, why, when you've got Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda sitting in your B team, the whole point is to bring these guys into your F1 seats. Like,
look, Yuki Tsunoda's never going to get a crack at the main team.
No, it doesn't feel like he is, whether or not he's deserving or not.
I think he's just there as a favour for Honda.
Yeah.
But
although I would 100% go on about and argue that he has shown enough now, to this day, today, that he deserves to get that seat because they've got no other better options in there.
Or to at least test it.
Yeah. He deserves a crack. He deserves a... What the guys showed you, he's quick, he's developed, he's changed as a driver. Give him a shot. Otherwise, what's the bloody point of your whole pathway? Like,
well, because that's the rumour about Sergio Perez, is that they are going to dump him at the end of the season, and then it's down to Franco Colapinto and Liam Lawson who gets the Red Bull seat.
It should be Liam Lawson. It should be one of your two guys. It should be Tsunoda or Lawson. That's it. Like, otherwise, if I'm the F1, I would be saying, hang on. Why do you have a second licence in the 10 constructors on the grid if you're not actually even going to promote them?
But I mean, that also shows that they've got no faith in Isaac Hadjar.
No, they've come out and said that. Despite him being in the... I think he's second at the moment in the F2, but... Yeah, they've come out and said that. But it goes to show you, have they got no faith in their driver development pathway? Like,
well, maybe they should not sign every damn driver who can turn a wheel.
Exactly right.
You know, you're flooding the market.
Yeah, and you're clogging your own pathway up when you've got guys that you've got sitting there on contracts that you've signed up, and you've got to kind of promote them. If you don't think they're good enough, why have them? You know, but it feels like they've clogged up their list with mediocre drivers, like you're saying, because they've signed everybody, Tom, Dick, and Harry, and these guys aren't quite good enough. But they're sitting there taking up these spots, and no one else can breeze past them to get up. And it's like, they're going to look at trying to poaching the other best talent ever. Well, why sign all these guys if you're just going to poach the best talent anyway?
And that's what they did with Perez. Like, they had all these other drivers, Daniel Kvyat, and who Brendan Hartley, all these drivers. Instead, they got Sergio Perez, who worked out for one season, and then after that, he's just completely shit the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a...
I really do think they've got to look at the way they do their driver development, because, I mean, even if you look at the drivers they've had that they spat out, who've turned out to be actually quite good F1 drivers that you'd say they would have in the seat right now, on the grid, Alex Albon, you'd have next to Verstappen tomorrow, compared to Sergio. Pierre Gasly even, he's turned out to be a pretty handy driver, love him or hate him. I mean, okay, his Red Bull time wasn't great, but again, they spat him out. He's turned out to be a good pair of hands on the F1 grid. Who else am I thinking of that's on the grid? There's another driver on the grid, is that correct? It's Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz, a multiple race winner, like one of the most respected drivers on the grid, spat out by a Red Bull. Like, maybe they need to look internally and go, what are we doing here? Like, you know, okay, we got the gem in Verstappen, but we're not really having much success with anyone else coming through. Is it us or is it the drivers? You know?
Yeah. I think the whole problem with the Red Bull system is Helmut Marko.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
You know, I think he's just the problem, and I think he just needs to bugger off.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the only news item we've got. Because I don't really want to get into Max Verstappen versus the British media. Like that's
We've talked about it many times before. The British bias. It's pretty.
Yeah.
We all know about the British bias that's on it, and Lando's their lover boy, and Lando can do no wrong. And,
yeah. I mean, how many years do we put up with Lewis Hamilton,
Ugh,
Lewis Hamilton, Lewis Hamilton? Before that, it was Nigel Mansell and Damon Hill, and Jenson Button. So
unfortunately, in F1, especially for us as Australian viewers, we have to see the coverage we get. We unfortunately have to see it through the British bias eyes. It's just how it is. We just got to do our best to ignore it and, look at it with our own lenses and not theirs, and realise it's a cock of shit because Lando can do wrong.
Yep.
And Max Verstappen isn't the villain they all vilify him to be just because he's Dutch.
So, I don't know if you listened to last week's episode. I went through all the teams with JB about what they should do and what they, to improve their standings or whatever. So I thought I'd do the same with you because I didn't get your opinion. So we'll get your opinion on this. So,
Exclusive.
So, compared to JB's. So, looking at the current constructors, so you got McLaren at the head of the constructors. What do you think, with 3 races to go, McLaren has to do in order to retain the constructors?
Pretty much what they've been doing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're almost 40 points clear there. 3 races to go. As long as those 2 boys aren't taking themselves out of the race and they're finishing in the points, I think they've got this wrapped in the bag because Red Bull's not getting anywhere with one driver. Sergio's just not doing enough for them to get enough points to even come back. And Ferrari's just a little bit too inconsistent. As they might get close, but I just don't see them. I don't see them beating McLaren in any of the races dominantly enough to catch them. I just think that McLaren just got to keep pair of steady hands, keep getting those points, keep getting, finishing races. It'd be good if Lando Norris could turn a pole into a win. Or something like
it'd be
that.
nice if he could turn a first lap into staying in first.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Unfortunately, I think we've just seen it this year. It's not him. It hasn't been him this year. It's got something he's got to work on. I don't see him winning the World Championship. To me, this race decided it for me. This difference in the 2 drivers, Verstappen and him. So I think that one's sewn up, the drivers. But I do think as long as McLaren just keep doing what they're doing, I think they'll sew up the constructors, and probably well deserved because they probably have been the best team on the grid. They just don't have the best driver.
Okay, so Ferrari, I mean they're still in the fight, and they're ahead of Red Bull now. What have they got to do in order to not only stay ahead of Red Bull, but have a chance at beating McLaren in the constructors?
Well, they've got to have a repeat of... Was it Mexico they finished 1-2? Or was it Coda?
Austin.
Austin.
It was Coda.
They need to have probably out of the next 2 out of the next 3 races, they need to have probably that. They need to have the 1-2 to get a chance to catch McLaren. Because as I've said, if McLaren just continue doing what they're doing, which I think they will, I don't see their drivers having incidents that take them out of the race unless Lando has another collision with Verstappen or something like that in their battle. Yeah, Ferrari probably just need to, I think they'll get second still, but if they want to get McLaren, they just need to have probably 2 out of the next 3 races. They need to have a repeat of Coda somehow, and Jagger 1-2, or that's pretty much for me. No incidents. 1-2, 2 out of the next 3 races.
I think I know the answer to this one, but what does Red Bull got to do if they want to move back up the...
Get rid of Sergio Perez ASAP. Effective immediately. For me, give Yuki Tsunoda the rest of the year, and it's between Yuki and Liam who you want to put in for next year. I would be getting rid of Sergio faster, sooner rather than later, because they're not going anywhere with what they're doing at the moment.
Yeah, Perez has certainly got to get in the fight if he wants to.
He's not been at all all year.
No.
He's nowhere near it, and the 2 RB boys are both looking far superior than him. And the whole point of Red Bull and RB is that you'll promote up and the rest of it. So how about you start doing what the whole point of it is and promote one of those guys up. Get rid of Sergio and either throw Liam and Yuki in. I don't care who it is. Throw one of them in. See what they go at the last 3 races and look to next year because you need to solidify that seat and you can't have a repeat of this next year. You need 2 drivers. You're one of the top teams in the grid. You need 2 drivers.
Yeah.
As good as Verstappen is, he can't do it all on his own.
So we're going to skip Mercedes because I'm pretty sure they've locked in 4th place.
Yeah.
And Aston Martin is locked in 5th place. But I'm sure Aston Martin would probably have more points if they didn't have Lance Stroll. I don't think that's an exaggeration.
It's not.
So Alpine has bumped its way all the way up to 6th, only just ahead of Haas.
What a result.
What has Alpine got to do in order to finish in 6th?
Oh, they got to fight for points because Haas to get to their 46, Haas have been fighting for points every race. Every race they seem to be in it. They've had some good ones where they've pipped a 5th and a 6th, I think, this year. But they always seem to be fighting for that 8th, 9th, 10th spot every week in, week out, which is collecting the points slowly, gradually. Alpine seem to have just got a really lucky weekend where everything's went absolutely perfect for them and they've jumped from 9th to 6th. So if they want to keep that position, they're just going to have to get some consistency in the next 3 races to fight for that 8th, 9th, 10th position just to keep those points ticking over because the next 2 teams, that's where they've been all year. And if Alpine want to stay ahead of them with the 3 races to go, they need to be in that fight, which they haven't been week in, week out. So, for Alpine, if they want to continue in that 6th spot, they need to just be every weekend for the next 3 races. They need to be fighting for points, not out in Q1 and nowhere near it. Because I don't see they won't get another lucky result like this.
I think Alpine has to pray that the next 3 races are all wet races.
Yeah, if they get that, then 100%.
Because if they don't have wet races, I think Haas is going to overtake them or RB is going to overtake them.
In the form of, I believe they would too. I think Haas and RB do overtake Alpine. Because again, I think this was just an anomaly and they got lucky and the car looked great, but I just don't see these conditions in the next 3 races. I don't see it happening. So, so to answer basically all those 3 teams, Haas and RB have got to continue doing what they're doing, which is fighting for those points I've been saying about, and Alpine have to join that fight, which they haven't been in because, unless, like you said, it rains, I don't see any hope of them retaining it, to be honest. I think they do drop back.
I think Haas and RB have just, like you said, they've got to keep scrapping for the scraps, really. The scraps off the table.
Yep.
They can't keep leaving money on the table. They've got to grab that, $2 coins, 50 cents, whatever. They got to grab that and make some money off it.
100%.
The Williams.
Oh, boy. Got to keep it on track for starters. How about that?
Well, I think they've pretty much locked in 9th now, which is a shame because I was so happy with them being in 8th and being ahead of Alpine, and then Alpine flukes it. It'd be nice if Williams would fluke it and just...
Yeah, we need a weekend like Alpine got this one to come from anywhere here because, you're right. We've locked up 9th, unfortunately. I thought we might have had 8th locked up because... I feel like as much as we've had so many incidents, my God, it's been a bad run for Williams. Our repair bill must be excruciating to look at. But despite all that, I do believe Williams have had a better year than Alpine overall.
Yeah.
Again, this is a really... Alpine are looking great up there in 6th, but it's one weekend. If we look at everything over the season, they've probably been the 9th best team on the grid. They haven't been where they are. So... kudos again to them. They got it on the day, and that's where they're sitting. But, Williams, unfortunately, we're not going anywhere for the rest of the 9th is ours. And, it's looking forward to next year. And all we can do from here is I'd just like to see us keep the cars on track. How about we not have any incidents for the rest of the year? Finish the races. That would be nice.
And I don't know what Kick Sauber can do to actually get points.
I think Bottas or Zoe, one of them just has to martyr themselves at the start of the race and just take out half the grid in a coordinated effort. Where
just kamikaze.
Yeah. Guan Yu Zhou needs to shoot around the outside as, Bottas freaking takes out.
Bottas needs to drive like he's playing Forza.
Yeah, why not?
Just drive into other cars, punt them out of the way. She'll be right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah.
Just do a Kevin Magnussen once he found out he was being replaced with Behrman. Just just go for it wherever you can, eh?
Yeah.
Rubbin's racing.
Yeah.
What do I got to lose? Oh, I took out after grid. Oh well, I'm going anyway.
You know, it was only Hungary 2021. It's okay. It's all right. It was wet that day. Before the dark times. Before the Empire. Right, so we're going to go to the drivers' standings now, and Max Verstappen is winning the Drivers' Championship with 393 points. Lando Norris is in second with 331 points. Charles Leclerc is in third with 307 points. Fourth place is Oscar Piastri with 262 points. Carlos Sainz is in fifth with 244 points. George Russell has moved up to sixth with 192 points. Lewis Hamilton has dropped down to seventh with 190 points. Sergio Perez is in eighth. I don't know how he's still in the top 10 with 151 points.
It honestly seems like excessive, him having 151.
Yeah, it seems like a distant memory.
Yeah, him having good results.
Yeah.
He hasn't had a good result for so long.
Yeah. In ninth place is Fernando Alonso on 62 points, and 10th place is Nico Hülkenberg with 31 points. And in the team standings, McLaren is winning with 593 points. Ferrari is in second with 557 points. Red Bull Racing is in third with 544 points. Mercedes has locked down fourth with 382 points. Fifth place is locked down with Aston Martin at 86 points. Shooting up to sixth, faster than a Taylor Swift record. Shooting up to sixth is Alpine with 49 points. Dropping down to seventh is Haas with 46 points. Dropping down to eighth is the RB with 44 points. Dropping down to ninth is Williams with the 17 points. And still, because there's nowhere lower than dead last, because they're not dropping down to nowhere, Kick Sauber in 10th with nothing. That How can they not have points, and yet Lance Stroll is driving for Aston Martin
And has points.
and has points? One of life's little mysteries. Right, so time for the social medias. So you can watch this on YouTube, the F1 Chat, care of Vindicator 18 channel. You can also watch it on the F1 Chat 1, a dedicated channel. We're on Facebook with the F1 Chat. We're on X as the F1 Chat 1. Don't forget the 1. We're on Rumble as the F1 Chat. And we're on Spotify as the F1 Chat. We're getting towards the tail end of the season.
Yeah, 3 races to go.
And it's time for that race that we thought was going to be absolutely craptacular last year, and it turned out to be one of the best ones of the calendar year. We're back at Las Vegas in about 2 weeks.
Pretty pumped for it, actually.
Yeah, you know what's going to happen. It's going to suck.
Probably.
It's
Because we're excited this time.
Yeah. We know what to expect.
Yeah.
But, it's this championship is going down to the wire.
Yeah, I mean, what a year. We'll reflect on it in the end, but, I mean, we've been treated to an awesome year. We've actually had a Drivers' Championship, not just a driver run away with it. And as much as I believe it was won in this race for me, Verstappen, I don't see Norris catching him with the form at the moment. It was good to have that be a thought, and again, it's still mathematically possible to happen, so can't ever wipe anything out. But, we've been blessed this year by actually having drivers in it.
And we still got 3 teams in the Constructors.
That's going to be the interesting battle, is that one, the Constructors, is how that one plays out, because they're all in it, and can Ferrari pit McLaren? I mean, what do you think? You asked me about those teams. What do you think?
Look, I think McLaren's got the Constructors stitched up.
Yep.
So it's really between Ferrari and Red Bull who gets the leftovers. I think Ferrari's going to pip them. Yeah. I think Ferrari's got them.
Sergio's just not close enough.
Yeah, he's misfiring.
He's just nowhere near it to get enough points, and even with this weekend, this was a weekend Red Bull should have been catching them because Sainz crashed out. You know, this is where Sergio needs to be getting 4th, 5th. Beaten Alpine, for God's sake. Beaten RB, for God's sake. You know, he can't even beat an RB at the moment. So, yeah, and until he lifts his form, which isn't going to happen because this has been his form for most of the year, they're not going to be anywhere near it.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to be back in 2 weeks, I think it is. 2 weeks, don't quote me on that, but 2 weeks for the Las Vegas F1. And we're winding down the year of our Lord 2024. But on behalf of myself and Longhorn and JB, thank you for tuning in. We will see you in 2 weeks for the Las Vegas F1. Until then, it is goodbye.
When you try your best but you don't succeed,